3 weeks ago, Private First Class Elijah Hartwell didn't have a mirror mounted on his rifle. 3 weeks ago, he'd watched 2 men die in ways that would haunt him for the rest of his life. 3 weeks ago, he was just another sniper in Metz, another name on a list, waiting for his turn to die. But that was before he broke every regulation in the book with a 10-cent piece of glass and some electrical tape. This is how it started. October 18th, 1944. Metz, France. The city was a fortress. Over 200 fortified German positions, machine gun nests, interlocking fields of fire. A medieval city turned into a killing ground. But the real problem wasn't the city. The real problem was the German snipers. 23 American snipers had already died in 3 weeks. 23. Not infantrymen charging into machine gun fire. 23 elite marksmen, the best shots in their battalions, all killed the exact same way, shot while searching for a target they never saw. Elijah Hartwell was 22 years old. He came from coal country in Pennsylvania. His father had been an Appalachian hunter, one of those quiet mountain men who could track a deer through 3 counties and drop it at 200 yards in a snowstorm. He'd taught Eli to shoot when he was 8, not for sport, for survival. The Great Depression had gutted their town. When the mines closed, there was no money for food, so they hunted. Squirrel, rabbit, deer when they could find one. Eli learned to make every shot count, because every cartridge cost money they didn't have. Every miss meant his family went hungry. That skill kept them alive through the Depression. Now it was supposed to keep him alive through the war, but in Metz skill wasn't enough. Hartwell had graduated at the top of his sniper class at Fort Benning. He carried the legendary M1903 Springfield, accurate to 800 yards, topped with an 8-power scope that could bring an enemy's face into perfect clarity from a quarter mile away. None of it mattered, because the Germans saw him first, every time, without exception. His first partner was Garrett Ashford, a farm kid from Nebraska. Quiet, steady, the kind of boy who could hit a running rabbit at 200 yards without breaking a sweat. 9 confirmed kills in 3 weeks. That morning, October 18th, they were set up in a collapsed textile mill. Ashford on the scope, Hartwell spotting. They'd been eating rations together 10 minutes before. Ashford had been telling a story about his girl back home, about the farm they were going to buy outside Lincoln when the war ended, about the life they were going to build. He never finished that story. There was no warning, just the snap of a bullet breaking the sound barrier, the wet crack of lead punching through bone, then the distant report of the rifle, a 7. 92mm Mauser round hit Ashford high on the head. He was dead before his body hit the floor. He'd been scanning forward through his scope. The shot came from a side window, 400 yards away, an angle Hartwell never saw. Hartwell never saw the muzzle flash, never saw the German. He fired 3 rounds at the window. Pure suppression, pure instinct. But he knew the man who'd been laughing with him 10 minutes earlier was gone. The enemy sniper had spotted them, aimed, fired, vanished, all before Hartwell even knew they were being hunted. Hartwell carried Ashford's body back at dusk, the weight of it, the terrible stillness. Command sent a replacement the next day. The line had to be held, but Hartwell kept thinking about the pattern. Ashford had been looking forward. The shot came from the side, from an angle he wasn't watching. Remember Ashford. Remember how fast he died. Because what happened 11 days later was going to be infinitely worse. October 29th, 1944. Private First Class Dominic Caruso became Hartwell's second partner. Dom was different from Ashford. Not a farm boy. He was from San Francisco, the son of a dock worker. Sharp eyes, city confidence, 12 confirmed kills in his first month. An artist with the Springfield. They worked together for 8 days. 8 days of whispered conversations in foxholes. 8 days of sharing stale bread. 8 days of watching each other's backs. 8 days of that fragile combat trust that comes from knowing someone will cover you when the bullets fly. Dom told Hartwell about the docks, about his father who'd worked there 40 years, about the girl he'd left behind, about the restaurant they were going to open together when he got home. On the morning of October 29th, they were in a new sector, rubble near a trench line. Dom was on the scope. Hartwell was spotting. The same sequence as always. The snap of the bullet, the thwack of impact, but this time was different. This time Dominic Caruso didn't die instantly. The round hit him in the chest, punched through his lung. Dom looked down at himself, confused. There was a small hole in his uniform, not much blood visible on the outside, but inside it was catastrophe. He tried to speak. No air came out. Just a sound, a wet, rattling wheeze. the most horrible sound Hartwell had ever heard. Hartwell understood immediately. The lung was punctured. Dom was drowning in his own blood on a dusty floor in France. Hartwell scrambled to him, ripped open Dom's field dressing with shaking hands. He could barely tear the packaging, pressed the bandage against the wound. Blood bubbled up from beneath it. Red foam. Little bubbles forming, popping, forming again. Again. Dom looked at Hartwell. His eyes were wide open. He wasn't in pain yet. The shock hadn't worn off. He was just afraid, terrified, because he understood what was happening to him. Breathe, Dom. Just breathe. But every breath Dom took pushed more blood into his lung. Every breath filled the space where air should be. Hartwell screamed, "Medic! Medic!" Nobody came. Machine gun fire somewhere, pinning everyone down. Nobody could move. 5 minutes passed. Dom tried to speak. "Eli, I can't." His voice bubbled, like trying to talk underwater. His hand grabbed Hartwell's uniform, gripped it, tight, tighter than Hartwell thought humanly possible. Hartwell kept pressing on the wound, kept screaming for help that wouldn't come, kept telling Dom to hold on, kept lying that everything would be okay. 10 minutes. Dom's eyes started to change. They weren't looking at Hartwell anymore. They were looking up, through the ceiling, past the ceiling, at something Hartwell couldn't see. Something beyond this dusty room in France. His breathing was getting shallower, faster, more desperate. The hand gripping Hartwell's uniform was still tight, but not quite as tight as before. 15 minutes. The bubbles were smaller now, less frequent, because there was less air to push the blood around. 20 minutes. Stay with me, Dom. Stay with me. Hartwell knew it was a lie. Dom knew it was a lie. They both knew. But Hartwell kept saying it anyway, because what else could he say? The blood kept bubbling up through the bandage, but slower now, fewer bubbles, because there were fewer breaths, because Dom was losing the fight. 25 minutes. Dom's eyes were still open, still conscious, still aware, still terrified. Hartwell would remember those eyes for the rest of his life, the fear in them, the knowing. 30 minutes. A medic finally reached them, crawling on his belly, dodging machine gun fire. He took one look at Dom, at the red foam, at the chest wound, shook his head. "I can't." "Try, fucking try." The medic tried. Morphine, fresh bandages, plasma. He worked fast, worked desperately, but it wasn't enough. The lung was flooded. Too much blood, not enough air. "You can't breathe liquid." 35 minutes. Dom's hand was barely gripping now, just resting on Hartwell's uniform, the pressure fading, like Dom himself was fading. 40 minutes. Dominic Caruso stopped breathing. His eyes were still open, looking at nothing. His hand was still touching Hartwell's uniform, just barely, just a whisper of contact. Hartwell sat there, holding his friend's body, in silence, in the dust, in the ruins of someone's home. The medic gently pried Dom's fingers loose from Hartwell's uniform. They were already starting to stiffen. Rigor mortis, beginning its work. The medic looked at Hartwell. "I'm sorry, I tried." Hartwell didn't respond, couldn't respond. He just stared at Dom's face, at the eyes that would never close, at the blood on his hands. Later he would learn where the German sniper had been hidden. A perfect hide. A small hole in a mountain of bricks, 350 yards away. The German had probably been watching them for an hour before taking the shot. Waiting, patient, picking the perfect moment, the perfect angle. And then he'd vanished. Long gone before the medic arrived, before Dom died, probably already setting up his next position. Hartwell carried Dom's body back that evening, the second body he'd carried in 11 days. Command sent another replacement. The mission continued. But something had broken inside Hartwell, or maybe something had crystallized, hardened. He'd watched Ashford die in an instant. That was horrifying. But he'd held Dom for 40 minutes while he drowned, listened to him trying to breathe, felt his grip slowly weaken, watched the light fade from his eyes. 40 minutes. Not instant, not merciful, just slow and terrifying and inevitable. That night Hartwell didn't sleep. He couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes he saw Dom's face, saw the red foam, heard that wet, drowning wheeze, and he kept thinking about the pattern. Both times. Ashford, Dom. They'd been looking through their scopes, focused forward, and the shot had come from an angle they weren't watching, from the flank, from the side. Why, how? The next day Hartwell started investigating. He interviewed other spotters, medics, riflemen who'd watched their sniper teams get picked off.
He studied the pattern of the 23 dead American snipers, and he found it. The answer. The Germans had perfected something called the Doppelstelling, the double position. It was brilliantly simple, lethally effective. A German sniper team would prepare two concealed positions, 30 yards apart, maybe 50, sometimes 100. They'd fire a single shot from position A, just one round, then immediately move. The moment that rifle cracked, the American sniper team would dive for cover, then do exactly what they were trained to do: scan the area where the muzzle flash came from, triangulate the shot.
Find the enemy. It took time. 12 seconds, 15, maybe 20. Time to settle the scope, control the breathing, search the rubble for a hint of movement, a glint of steel, a shadow that didn't belong. But it was a trap, because the German sniper was already gone, already crawling through a trench, a tunnel, a sewer pipe, moving to position B. And from position B, he wasn't hiding, he wasn't searching, he was waiting, he was aiming, right at the spot where the American sniper had to be. By the time the American had his scope trained on position A, searching for a target, the German was already squeezing the trigger from position B, already firing. The mathematics were simple, brutal, perfect. Americans searching, Germans aiming, Germans shot first, always. But there was something deeper, something more fundamental, something the tacticians back in Washington didn't understand. The problem wasn't the Doppelstelling, the problem was the scope itself. When you looked through an 8-power magnification scope, your entire world shrank. It collapsed down to a tiny 8-degree cone of vision. It was like looking at the war through a toilet paper tube. You could see a single window frame 400 yards away with perfect clarity. You could count the bricks around it, see the weathering on the wood, see a man's face well enough to know if he needed a shave. But you couldn't see the other window 50 feet to the left. You couldn't see the rooftop above you. You couldn't see the pile of rubble behind you. You couldn't see your flanks. Everything outside that narrow 8-degree cone was completely invisible. You were blind to 98% of the world around you. And the Germans knew it. They'd figured it out. They exploited this blindness ruthlessly. They didn't attack the cone. They didn't shoot from the positions the Americans were watching. They attacked the man holding the scope. They shot from the flanks. From angles the Americans weren't scanning. By the time an American sniper realized he was looking in the wrong place and tried to swing his scope to search a new sector, a German sniper was already aimed at his head, waiting for the movement, waiting for the target to present itself. That's what killed Ashford. That's what killed Dom. That's what killed all 23. The tunnel vision, the blindness, the inability to see threats they weren't looking for. How do you defeat an enemy who sees you when you can't see him? How do you watch your front and your flanks at the same time? How do you see the danger coming from the angles you aren't scanning? Hartwell wrote a report. Detailed. Technical. He explained the scope blindness problem, the 8-degree limitation, the exploitation by German snipers. He submitted it through proper channels. The response came back from Washington 2 weeks later, from the experts, the men in warm offices far from the fighting. The men who tested rifles on clean ranges where everyone wore hearing protection. They dismissed it, rejected it entirely. Their reasoning was simple. A battlefield is the loudest place on earth. Artillery, tanks, grenades, screaming, chaos. In all that noise, a sniper's narrow focus is an advantage. It helps him concentrate, helps him block out distractions and find his target. The narrow field of view is a feature, not a bug. Better training is what you need, not equipment modifications. Follow protocol, stay mobile, change positions, use better concealment. The experts had never been in Metz. They'd never watched a friend die from a shot that came from an angle nobody was watching. They'd never held someone while they drowned in their own blood. They just knew what the manual said, and the manual said the equipment was fine. Hartwell read their response. Then he threw it away. He was now alone, a sniper without a spotter. Command told him to wait. A new partner was being transferred from another unit. Hartwell knew what that meant. They were assigning him a new man to watch die. Another body he'd have to carry back, another set of eyes that would haunt him. He was on the list. Number 24, just waiting for his turn. 3 days after Dom died, Hartwell sat in the ruins of a hotel. 3rd floor. Most of the roof was gone. Cold November air poured through the gaps. He could see his breath in the dim light of his flashlight. He wasn't cleaning his rifle. That was already perfect. He'd cleaned it obsessively. 3 times that day alone. There was nothing left to clean. He was going through his personal kit, the small canvas bag every soldier carried. Soap, a worn razor, and a simple 4x6-inch mirror. Standard military issue. Metal frame, scratched but reflective. He picked it up, stared at his own reflection in the dim light. 22 years old. He looked 40, exhausted, hollow. The face of a man who'd watched friends die and knew he was next. He looked from the mirror to his rifle lying on the broken furniture. From the rifle back to the mirror. And then it happened. An idea. Not a good idea. Not a sane idea. A desperate, impossible idea born from fear and grief and fury. What if he could see behind him while looking forward? What if he could watch his flanks while scanning through the scope? What if he could break the tunnel vision that had killed everyone else? The mirror was small, light. If he could mount it on the rifle somehow, near the scope, at an angle where he could see it in his peripheral vision, he'd be able to see threats from the side, from behind, from the angles nobody was watching. It was insane, completely against regulations. Modifying precision sniper equipment without ordnance approval was a court-martial offense. Altering issued gear could mean the stockade, dishonorable discharge, ruin. But Ashford was dead. Dom had drowned over 40 minutes while Hartwell held him. 23 American snipers were dead, and Hartwell didn't want to be number 24. He didn't care about regulations anymore. He looked at the mirror in his hand, looked at his rifle, and started planning. Tomorrow he would risk everything. His career, his freedom, possibly his life. He would break the rules, modify his weapon, do something no sniper was supposed to do, because the rules were getting people killed, and he couldn't watch another friend die while looking through that 8-degree cone of blindness. The fog outside the hotel was thick, cold. November in Metz. Somewhere out there German snipers were waiting, watching, ready to exploit the same weakness that had killed 23 Americans. But Hartwell had an idea now, a 10-cent piece of glass and a plan. He didn't know if it would work, didn't know if he'd survive long enough to test it. He just knew he had to try. Because doing nothing meant dying, meant becoming number 24, meant another letter home to his parents. "We regret to inform you." He put the mirror back in his kit. Tomorrow night he'd install it. Tomorrow he'd find out if a simple shaving mirror could change the mathematics of death in Metz. Tomorrow everything would change. Or he'd die trying. November 2nd, 1944. Night. The hotel skeleton was freezing. Most of the third floor was exposed to the sky. Hartwell found a corner where part of the ceiling still held. He positioned his flashlight carefully. The beam couldn't be seen from outside. German patrols were everywhere. He pulled out the mirror. 4 by 6 inches. Standard issue. 10 cents worth of stamped metal and glass. In his other hand, electrical tape from a signal corps spool. A knife. Wire cutters. Not precision tools. The tools of a desperate man. He set his M1903 Springfield on the makeshift table. The scope sat 3 inches above the barrel in steel rings. The mirror had to mount where he could see it while looking through the scope. But it couldn't interfere, couldn't block his sight picture, couldn't throw off the balance, couldn't rattle during recoil. First attempt. He taped the mirror above the scope. Temporary strips. Shouldered the rifle. Eye to the scope. The mirror was visible, but he had to lift his eye to see it clearly. Fatal. Taking your eye off the scope in combat gets you killed. He ripped it off. The tape made a tearing sound in the silence. Too loud. His heart hammered. If anyone heard. If an officer investigated. Court-martial before dawn. Nobody came. Second attempt. He mounted it below the scope. Left side. Low position. Shouldered the rifle again. The mirror blocked his view of the bolt. He couldn't reload without moving the entire rifle. Useless. Third attempt. Too far forward. The angle was wrong. He could see the mirror, but it showed only sky. Frustration building. His hands were numb. The electrical tape wasn't meant for freezing temperatures. The adhesive kept failing. Fourth attempt. Fifth. Sixth. He was adjusting by fractions of an inch now. Testing angles. Testing distances. Each time shouldering the rifle. Checking the view. Finding it wrong. Seventh attempt. The mirror slipped from his frozen fingers. Fell. Clattered against the broken floor. Clang. The sound was like a gunshot. Hartwell froze. Heart stopped. Breath stopped. Footsteps in the hallway outside. Someone walking. Getting closer. 10 seconds of pure terror. If they came in, if they saw what he was doing. The footsteps passed. Faded. Gone. Hartwell exhaled. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely pick up the mirror. Not from cold now, from fear. from the weight of what he was attempting. This was treason against regulations, unauthorized modification of precision equipment, career-ending, potentially life-ending. But Dom's face appeared in his mind, the red foam bubbling from his chest, the wet wheeze, the eyes wide with terror. 40 minutes of drowning. If Dom had been able to see that flanking angle, he might still be alive. 8th attempt. Hartwell cut fresh strips of tape, wrapped them around the mirror frame for padding, wrapped more around the scope tube itself, creating a foundation. He positioned the mirror on the left side of the scope, 45-degree angle, 8 inches forward of his eye, wrapped the tape, once, twice, 3 times, testing after each wrap. The Springfield kicked hard. If the mirror shifted even a fraction during recoil, the whole thing was worthless. 4 wraps, 5, 6. The tape built up, crude but solid. 9th attempt. He shouldered the rifle, pressed his eye to the scope, aimed at a stain on the far wall, glanced left with his peripheral vision, not moving his head, not taking his eye from the scope. Just a fractional shift of his eyeball. The mirror appeared in his peripheral vision, small, distorted. But there, it showed the doorway behind him, the hallway, his entire rear arc. It worked. Holy Christ, it actually worked. He could see forward through the scope and backward in the mirror simultaneously. He wrapped the tape 3 more times, making it permanent, solid. He tested the rifle's balance. The mirror added maybe 4 ounces. Nothing. He checked the scope alignment, aimed at multiple reference points. Still perfect. The modification looked crude, like a child's garage project, obviously non-regulation. Any officer would see it instantly, but Hartwell wasn't planning to let officers inspect his rifle. He cleaned up the tape scraps, put away his tools, checked his watch. 4:45 in the morning. In 5 hours he'd be moving to a new position, the industrial district, where German snipers owned every angle, where 3 Americans had died last week. He'd find out if a shaving mirror could change the mathematics of death, or if it was just one more stupid idea from a scared man. He lay down, stared at the ceiling. Dom's eyes stared back. November 3rd, 1944. Dawn. Hartwell met his new partner at the staging area. Private Rafael Navarro. Everyone called him Rafe. 19 years old. Texas borderland. 3 weeks as a sniper. 0 kills. Good instincts according to his file. But terrified. You could see it in his eyes. He'd heard about Mets. He knew the odds. As they moved out, Rafe saw the contraption on Hartwell's rifle, pointed at it. "What's that?" Hartwell looked at him. "Survival." Rafe didn't ask again. By 7:15, they were in position. The destroyed bakery, south wall completely gone, exposing them to the street. But the old brick oven provided cover. A dark fortress within the ruin. A crack in the remaining wall gave them a view of the German factory complex. 400 yards away, broken windows, collapsed roofs, mountains of rubble. Somewhere in that wreckage they were waiting. Rafe covered their entrance. M1 Garand ready, watching for German infantry. Hartwell settled behind his Springfield, morning fog lifting. The factory emerged piece by piece from the grey. He pressed his eye to the scope. 8-power magnification brought everything into sharp focus. He began his scan, left to right, slow, methodical, looking for shadows that were too dark. Movement, the glint of an enemy scope. His field of view was the same narrow cone that had killed everyone else, 50 feet at 400 yards, the tunnel vision. But now he had the mirror, in his peripheral vision, small, distorted, but there. It showed the street behind him, the ruined buildings, his flanks. 7:23 a.m. Movement in the factory. 3rd floor. Damaged window. Could be debris. Wind or human. Hartwell held steady. Controlled his breathing. The movement came again. Definitely human. A German soldier, moving slowly, carefully. A sniper setting up. Hartwell calculated. 410 yards, no wind, easy shot. His finger moved to the trigger. Took up slack. He was about to fire. Then he saw it in the mirror. A flicker. Tiny. Almost imperceptible. A shift of light. Behind him. Across the street. Building he'd thought was empty. 3rd floor window. Hartwell didn't move. Didn't turn his head. Kept his eye locked to the scope. Rifle aimed at the factory. But his attention snapped to the mirror. He watched the reflection. There. The glint of a scope. Dark line of a rifle barrel. A German sniper. Aiming directly at them. At their crack in the wall. Probably watching for 5 minutes. Maybe more. taking his last breath before pulling the trigger. This was it, the exact moment. The moment Ashford died, the moment Dom died, focused forward while a flanking sniper prepared the kill shot. But Hartwell saw him. The mirror worked. He kept his rifle locked on the factory. Whispered. Voice barely audible. Rafe, German sniper, building behind us. 3rd floor, left window, aiming at us right now. To his credit, Rafe didn't flinch, didn't panic, didn't make sudden movements. He just moved, slow, smooth, brought his Garand up, turned toward the building behind them, found the window, found the shape in darkness. I see him. Hartwell's heart was hammering. This had to be perfect. 3 seconds before the German pulled his trigger. Maybe less. On my count. I take factory. You take flanker. Rafe's breathing steadied. Combat calm. 3. Hartwell's finger tightened. 2. Breath in. Half out. 1. Fire. The Springfield cracked. Recoil slammed Hartwell's shoulder. 410 yards. The German in the factory jerked backward. Center mass. Fell from view. Dead or dying. Instantly Rafe fired. The Garand banged. Louder. The .30-06 round punched through the window frame behind them. The German sniper slumped forward. The one who'd been seconds from killing them. His rifle fell, clattered against rubble below. 2 shots. 2 kills. 5 seconds. The doppelstelling was broken. Hartwell worked the bolt. Hot brass ejected. Spun through air. Clinked on floor. He loaded a new round. Scanned through the scope. Factory clear. Mirror showed no threats. Safe. For now. Rafe was breathing hard. Adrenaline hitting. That German had you dead. How did you see him? Hartwell tapped the crude mirror. Rafe stared at it. You need this on every rifle in this battalion. The engagement lasted 4 hours. 6 German snipers eliminated. Hartwell got 4. Rafe got 2. The mirror saved their lives 3 more times. 3 times Hartwell spotted a forward target only to see a second threat in the mirror. Flanking. From angles they weren't watching. Each time coordination was flawless. Rafe engaged the flanker. Hartwell took the forward target. The German double position tactic was useless. Their unbeatable system was broken by a 10-cent piece of glass and tape. Word spread by afternoon. Hartwell's Team 6 kills 0 casualties. In Metz, that was impossible. Other sniper teams wanted to know how. Rafe told them about the mirror. By evening, 3 snipers wanted the modification. First was Sergeant Silas Drummond, 28, Montana trapper. He'd lost 2 partners in 3 weeks, both killed by flanking shots. Drummond watched Hartwell install the mirror that night. Same dark hotel room, asked questions about angle, position, tape amount. When Hartwell finished, Drummond tested it. Scope, mirror, back to scope. It's perfect. I should have thought of this. Next morning, Drummond engaged Germans near the cathedral, spotted 2 using the mirror. Threats he never would have seen otherwise. Eliminated both before they could fire. He came back raving, told every sniper he knew. By November 8th, Hartwell had installed mirrors on 9 rifles. The modifications spread organically, sniper to sniper, team to team. They stopped waiting for Hartwell. Snipers made their own. Broken window glass, polished belt buckles, chrome from destroyed vehicles. Methods varied. Principles stayed the same. 360-degree vision. The kill ratio shifted. October 1-2. Americans losing. Mid-November 4-1. Americans winning. The hunters were back, but the modification was no longer secret. It was popular. November 10th. The man in charge came to investigate. Captain Clayton Mercer commanded the sniper platoon. Career Army. 12 years. Knew every manual by heart. A man who went by the book, always. He was doing standard inspection, checking equipment, verifying zeros. He climbed to Hartwell's position in a church tower, saw Hartwell, saw Rafe, saw the mirror taped to the Springfield. Mercer stopped. Just stopped. Stared for 10 solid seconds. What is that? Private. Hartwell's stomach dropped. This was it. Court-martial. Everything he'd feared. Before Hartwell could answer, Rafe spoke. It's a mirror, sir. A modification. Rafe explained everything. Ashford. Dom drowning. German flanking tactics. Doppelstelling. How the mirror revealed threats. Saved lives. Multiple times. Completely unauthorized, sir. But it works. Mercer looked at Rafe. Then Hartwell. Walked to the rifle. Didn't yell. Just examined it. Tested tape. Checked angle. Bent down. Eye to scope. Glanced at mirror. Stood up. Understood. Instantly. How many rifles have this? Hartwell's throat was dust. 9, sir, including mine. Silence. Long. Hartwell prepared for arrest. Then Mercer said something Hartwell never expected. "By tomorrow morning, every sniper rifle in this battalion has one." Pause. "That's an order, Private. Direct look at Hartwell. I'll handle paperwork. You keep my men alive." Hartwell stood stunned. Mercer lived by the book. He'd just ordered Hartwell to rewrite it. Made an unauthorized, court-martial-worthy modification official policy. Mercer understood what Washington didn't. Regulations were ink on paper. His men were blood and bone. He'd risk his career to save his snipers. That night Hartwell worked. No sleep. Recruited Drummond Rafe, others with modifications. Showed them installation. Exact angle. Best positioning. How to tape it so recoil wouldn't shatter glass. All night. Basements of ruins. A secret factory of desperate men. Some mirrors used tape. Others used telephone wire. One sniper used leather straps from a German gas mask case. Methods varied. Principle remained. By November 12th morning, every sniper in the battalion had a mirror. The German snipers walked into a buzzsaw. November 12th, dawn. The German world changed overnight. They didn't know yet. The doppelstelling had been perfect, for weeks. Fire from A, move to B, wait for Americans to scan A, kill them while searching. Simple, brutal, 23 kills, 3. But November 12th, every American had a mirror. German tactics unchanged. Americans could see everything. First engagement, 7:15 a.m., railway yard. German team set double position. 2 hides, 60 yards apart. Perfect concealment. Fired from A. Single shot at observation post. Deliberate miss. Bait. Draw out American snipers. Make them scan. Make them search. While searching, Germans moved to B and wait. But the American didn't scan A. Shooter kept scope forward. Spotter watched the mirror. In that small, crude glass, they saw the German crawling to B. Settling in. Bringing rifle up. American fired first. 1 round. German in position B never got his shot. Died confused. How did they know? This repeated. 8:30. Again, 9:45. Again, 11:20. By afternoon, German teams across Metz reported the impossible. Americans engaging flanking positions they shouldn't see. Counterattacking before second shots. Killing men in position B while still setting up. Intelligence reports showed confusion. German commanders wrote about unusual aggressive American tactics. Somehow seeing threats from impossible angles. Engaging targets outside field of view. Eyes in back of heads. Germans tried adapting, moved positions further back. 600 yards. 800. Didn't matter. Mirror showed movement regardless of distance. Tried multiple teams at once. Overwhelming with targets. Didn't work. American pairs were invulnerable. 1 on scope forward. 1 watching mirror. Nothing got past. Late November, the unthinkable happened. German snipers stopped engaging. Started avoiding American teams. The terror of Metz. Invisible killers who'd dominated for weeks. Were now afraid. Tactical advantage completely reversed. Kill ratio told the story. October 1-2, November 28th 5-1. 5 Germans dead per American lost. The stupid mirror trick. Crude modification with 10-cent glass and tape. Made Hartwell's unit 5 times deadlier. But the story wasn't over. November 14th. German intelligence figured it out. Captured documents revealed the order later. Amerikanische Scharfschützen mit Spiegeln. Zerstören Sie die Spiegel. American snipers with mirrors. Destroy the mirrors. Germans organized Spiegeljäger. Mirror hunters. Mission. Don't kill the sniper. Kill his mirror. Shatter the glass. Blind them again. November 15th. First American mirror destroyed. German sniper 600 yards out put a round directly through Sergeant Drummond's mirror. Glass exploded. Shards everywhere. Drummond survived. Barely. The round that shattered his mirror missed his head by 3 inches. That night, 3 more mirrors destroyed. Precise shots. Deliberate targeting. Americans had to adapt. Again. Hartwell gathered sniper teams. Emergency meeting. Basement of a church. We need smaller mirrors. 3 by 4 inches. Harder to hit. Recessed mounting. Protected by scope rings. Camouflage paint. Dull the reflection. Dull. They worked through the night, modifying the modifications, making them harder to target. By November 16th morning, new mirrors deployed. Smaller, better hidden, less reflective. Germans tried, but hitting a 3 by 4 inch target at 600 yards while the American was shooting back impossible. The mirror hunters became hunted. 2 days, 6 Spiegeljäger dead. The tactic failed, the mirrors survived, and the Germans stopped trying. By November 20th, they'd stopped engaging American snipers entirely. The tactical withdrawal was complete. The terror was over. Hartwell's tally by month's end, 47 confirmed kills. Mirror saved him 6 documented times, situations where Germans had him lined up from flanks. Mirror gave enough warning to survive. Rafe finished with 14 kills, survived the war. Drummond 31 kills, 4 Mirror saves. The modification worked, saved lives, changed everything. But the bureaucracy was watching, and they had very different plans for who would get the credit. December 1944. The mirrors had been in use for 3 weeks. Every sniper in the battalion had one. The kill ratio was 5-1. American snipers were surviving at rates nobody had thought possible in Metz. Then a training inspector from division headquarters arrived. He was doing standard equipment checks, verifying that everything met regulation specifications, ensuring proper maintenance protocols. He saw the mirrors, crude tape, non-standard mounting, improvised modifications on precision sniper rifles. He wrote a report, scathing, detailed, brutal, unauthorized modifications, violation of ordnance protocol, lack of standardization, non-regulation equipment in active combat use, potential safety hazards, undermining of established doctrine. The report circulated through command, week after week. Officers in heated rear echelon offices debated what to do. On one hand, it was a clear breach of regulations. Multiple regulations, the kind of breach that normally resulted in immediate disciplinary action. On the other hand, the numbers were impossible to ignore. Sniper teams using mirrors had survival rates 3 times higher than before, kill ratios that were unprecedented, tactical effectiveness that was transforming the urban warfare dynamics in Metz. The debate continued through December, through Christmas, into the new year. January 1945. An official evaluation team arrived from Aberdeen Proving Ground, the Army's premier testing facility, where new weapons and equipment were developed and certified. 3 officers, 2 civilian ballistics experts, all from the United States. None had been in Metz during the fighting. They came to investigate the mirror modifications, to determine if they had merit, to decide what should be done. They spent a week, inspected dozens of mirrors, interviewed snipers, tested the modifications on improvised ranges, measured field of view improvements, calculated angles, ran ballistics tests. They took extensive notes, photographs, measurements. They asked detailed questions about how the mirrors were mounted, what materials were used, how they'd been developed. The snipers told them about Hartwell, about the desperate night in November when he'd first installed a shaving mirror on his rifle, about how it had spread, about how it had saved lives. The evaluation team nodded, took more notes, thanked them for their time. Then they went back to the United States, back to Aberdeen, back to their clean facilities and warm offices and properly equipped laboratories, and they wrote their official report. The mirrors, they concluded, were a significant survivability enhancement, a tactical innovation of genuine value. They needed to be integrated into sniper doctrine immediately, standardized, properly manufactured, issued as regulation equipment. They even designed proper mounting brackets, drew up specifications for factory production, outlined training protocols for their use. They made it sound professional, official, proper. They made it sound like they had discovered the innovation. The report stated, Aberdeen Proving Ground Evaluation Team has identified a critical tactical deficiency in current sniper operations. Specifically, the limited field of view provided by standard rifle scopes creates exploitable blindness to flanking threats. To address this deficiency, the evaluation team has developed a peripheral vision mirror modification that significantly enhances survivability. Developed. They used the word developed, as if they'd invented it, as if the idea had come from their laboratories and testing facilities, as if it hadn't come from a terrified 22-year-old sitting in a freezing hotel room holding a shaving mirror and thinking about his friends drowning in their own blood. Private First Class Elijah Hartwell's name did not appear in the report. Not once. Not anywhere. Neither did Rafael Navarro's name, neither did Silas Drummond's, neither did Captain Clayton Mercer's. The official record stated that Army evaluators had identified the problem and developed the solution. Clean, simple, bureaucratically correct. Captain Mercer was furious when he saw the report. He wrote letters, angry letters, to his superiors, to the evaluation team, to anyone who would listen. He submitted detailed after-action reports, making absolutely certain that Hartwell's name appeared in every single document, explaining exactly how the modification had been developed, by whom, under what circumstances. He fought the bureaucracy, tried to force them to correct the record, to give credit where it was due. But those reports got lost, filed incorrectly, buried in the massive administrative machinery of a global war. Millions of documents, thousands of innovations, hundreds of battles. The paperwork disappeared into the system. The evaluation team's version became the official history. It was cleaner that way, easier to process. Committees developing solutions through proper channels was how things were supposed to work, not scared privates breaking regulations in the dark. February 1945. An officer came to see Hartwell, brought a copy of the Aberdeen report, explained the situation. "You're not mentioned. The credit went to the evaluation team. You could file a formal complaint, request official recognition. There are channels." Hartwell read through the report, slowly, carefully, saw his desperate midnight gamble described in clean technical language, his improvised solution presented as a properly developed innovation, his idea credited to experts who'd never spent a single day in Metz. He handed the papers back. "No." The officer looked surprised. "You don't want your name on this. This could mean a commendation, maybe a medal. Official recognition for a significant tactical innovation." Hartwell shook his head. "I don't care about the credit, sir. I care that snipers are surviving, that partners aren't dying from shots they never see coming, that men are going home to their families. That's the victory that matters." The officer didn't understand. Tried to explain again the importance of recognition, of establishing proper credit, of ensuring the historical record was accurate. Hartwell cut him off, respectfully but firmly. "Sir, with respect, Rafe Navarro is alive. Silas Drummond is alive. 30 other snipers in this battalion are alive who would be dead without the mirrors. That's what matters. Not my name in some report." The officer looked at him for a long moment, then nodded, filed the papers away, and left. Hartwell went back to the line. There was still a war to fight. May 8th, 1945. The war in Europe ended. Germany surrendered. The fighting stopped. Hartwell had survived 11 months of combat, 47 confirmed kills. The mirror had saved his life more times than he could count. Situations where German snipers had him lined up from flanks, where the mirror gave just enough warning to dive, to move, to survive. He was 23 years old. He felt 50. He went home to Pennsylvania, back to the coal country where he'd grown up. Got a job in a steel mill, same kind of hard, hot, honest work he'd done before the war. He married in 1947. Mary, a girl from his hometown who'd waited for him, who'd written letters every week while he was overseas. They had 3 children, built a quiet life. Hartwell never talked about the war. When people asked, he'd say he'd been a sniper. That's all, nothing more. He didn't mention the mirror, didn't mention saving dozens of lives, didn't mention changing sniper tactics in an entire theatre of war. It wasn't modesty. He genuinely didn't think it mattered anymore. The war was over. The men who needed saving had been saved. The innovation had done its job. The rest was just bureaucratic details. His children grew up not knowing. His co-workers at the mill didn't know. Even Mary only knew the basics. He'd been a sniper in France. He'd survived. That was enough. By the 1960s, the mirror modification had been completely forgotten. New scopes came out, better optics, wider fields of view, variable magnification. The technology improved. The crude mirror mounts became obsolete. The official Army history of sniper operations during World War II was published. Comprehensive, detailed, hundreds of pages. Elijah Hartwell's name did not appear. Not once. His contribution had been erased. Not by malice, not by conspiracy, just by time, by bureaucracy, by the institutional tendency to remember official developments and forget individual innovations. Field modifications weren't historically significant. Proper research and development was. That should have been the end of the story. A forgotten innovation, an unnamed soldier, a contribution lost to history. But it wasn't the end. 1987. A military historian named Dr. Richard Morrison was researching sniper innovations from World War II. He was writing a book, trying to be thorough, digging through archives. He found something odd in old maintenance logs from the 5th Infantry Division. References to improvised mirrors, unusual equipment modifications in late 1944, multiple mentions of a private first-class Hartwell. The official histories didn't mention this. The Aberdeen report claimed the mirrors were developed by the evaluation team in 1945. But these logs were from November 1944, 2 months earlier. Morrison spent 6 months tracking down veterans from that unit. Most were dead. Some couldn't remember details. Memories fade after 40 years. But he found Rafael Navarro, retired police officer, living in Texas, and Navarro remembered everything. They talked for 8 hours. Navarro told him about Garrett Ashford dying instantly, about Dominic Caruso's horrible death, about holding him for 40 minutes while he drowned, about Hartwell's desperate midnight gamble with a shaving mirror and electrical tape, about how it had spread through the battalion, how it had broken the German doppelstelling tactic, how it had saved dozens of lives, how the Germans had eventually stopped engaging American snipers entirely. Morrison took notes frantically. This was the real story, the true history, not the sanitized official version. Where's Hartwell now? Navarro gave him an address, small town in Pennsylvania. Morrison drove there, found a modest house in a working-class neighborhood, knocked on the door. Elijah Hartwell answered. He was 67 years old, grey hair, weathered face, hands scarred and calloused from 4 decades of mill work. Morrison introduced himself, explained his research. Asked if Hartwell had served in Metz. Yes. Asked if he'd installed mirrors on sniper rifles. Yes. Asked why he'd never talked about it, never sought recognition, never tried to correct the historical record. Hartwell was quiet for a long time. Then he invited Morrison inside. They talked for 3 hours. Morrison heard the whole story, from Hartwell's perspective. The fear, the desperation, the terrible weight of watching friends die, the midnight gamble, the risk, the uncertainty. At the end, Morrison told Hartwell something he'd calculated. Based on survival rate improvements and kill ratio changes, the mirror modification had likely saved between 40 and 60 American sniper lives. Minimum, possibly more. Hartwell sat there, silent, looking at his hands, the same hands that had taped that first mirror onto his scope, the same hands that had held Dom while he died. Finally he spoke. I never counted the lives saved. I just remembered the men who came back, Rafe, Silas, the others, knowing they made it home to their families. That was enough for me. Morrison published a paper, an academic article in a military history journal. Detailed, well-researched, properly cited. It got some attention in military history circles. A few other researchers referenced it. A couple of museums requested copies, but most people still didn't know. The general public had never heard of Elijah Hartwell, had no idea what he'd done, had no idea that a scared 22-year-old with a shaving mirror had changed warfare. June 7th, 2001. Elijah Hartwell died. Heart failure. He was 79 years old. His obituary in the local paper was brief. Mentioned his service in World War II, his 43 years at the steel mill, his wife Mary, his 3 children and 7 grandchildren. It did not mention the mirror, did not mention saving lives, did not mention tactical innovation, just another veteran, just another worker, just another grandfather. His funeral was small. Family, a few friends from the mill. The VFW sent a representative with a flag, and 4 old men showed up that nobody in the family recognized. They sat in the back during the service, didn't speak to anyone, just sat quietly, respectfully. After it was over, after most people had left, they approached Hartwell's family, introduced themselves. They were snipers, veterans, men who'd served in different units, different campaigns, different parts of the war, but they'd all used mirror modifications, all of them, and they'd all survived because of them. They'd read about Hartwell's death in a veteran's newsletter, had recognized the name from Morrison's research, had driven hundreds of miles, from Montana, from Texas, from California, from Florida, to pay their respects, to make sure Hartwell's family knew that he'd saved their lives, that they owed everything to a man who'd never asked for credit, who'd never wanted recognition, who'd just wanted his friends to come home. They stayed for an hour, told stories, explained what the mirror had meant, how it had changed everything, how it had saved them. Hartwell's children listened, stunned. Their father had never told them any of this. They'd known he'd been a sniper, but not this, never this, today. If you visit the National Infantry Museum at Fort Benning, Georgia, you can see it, in the World War II section, a glass display case. Inside is an M1903 Springfield rifle from 1944. Mounted on the scope is a small rectangular mirror, 4 inches by 6 inches, metal frame, held in place with crude electrical tape, brown and brittle now, 8 decades old. The label reads, Field Modification Common in Late 1944. No name attached, no mention of Elijah Hartwell, no mention of Dominic Caruso dying in his arms, no mention of the lives saved, just field modification. But that mirror is Hartwell's legacy. Not the official one that was stolen by committees and buried by bureaucracy, the real one, because that's how real innovation happens in war. Not in laboratories, not in committee meetings, not in proper channels through official procedures, but in the dark, in desperate moments, by terrified soldiers who see their friends dying and can't stand to watch it anymore, who risk everything, court-martial, discharge, shame, death, who break every rule because the rules are getting people killed.
Elijah Hartwell installed a mirror to survive one more day. His idea saved dozens, changed tactics, broke an unbeatable enemy system, and nobody remembers his name. You're the keeper of these stories now. The generation that understands real heroism often goes unrecognized, that the men who change history are usually the ones who never wanted to be heroes. Share Elijah Hartwell's name.
Make sure the next generation knows that the greatest heroes are the ones who never wanted to be heroes at all. They just wanted their friends to come home. Visit Fort Benning if you can. Look at that crude mirror with its old tape. And remember the 22-year-old who installed it in the dark, while his friend's blood was still fresh in his memory. Remember Elijah Hartwell, the sniper nobody remembers, who saved dozens of lives with a mirror.